What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode here on CNR TV. I'm Kurt.
I'm Josh.
And today we are covering Spider-Man. Guys, we know we've been gone for a little bit, but we are back. And what a movie to pick to come back to. I mean,
amazing.
It was the Amazing Spider-Man. Not literally, but
it was even better than the Amazing Spider-Man.
Even better than it exceeded expectations in a lot of areas, but we will get into that after like we normally do, or we do a recap. So we're gonna play do what?
Lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about. So let's jump into this recap, guys, and then afterwards, me and Josh will discuss it. One of the most anticipated movies of the year, Spider-Man: No Way Home, is the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to officially step into the multiverse. The end of Spider-Man: Far From Home saw Peter Parker as a wanted man. His identity made public after Mysterio framed the titular superhero for murder. No Way Home is Spider-Man's most intriguing and fun story yet. Though the multiverse looms large, the film's thoughtful in its focus on Peter's journey. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland, is trying to live a normal life, but finds it difficult to be a regular teenager now that his dual identity has been publicly outed. He's wanted for murder and must defend himself against the allegations, which, thanks to Mysterio's well-edited video, are pretty damning. Peter's life, to put it simply, is turned upside down. The only way he thinks will fix the mess and make things normal again is to use magic. To do that, Spider-Man goes straight to Dr. Strange, who aids him by attempting a spell that will erase Peter's identity from the minds of the world. Naturally, things don't go according to plan, and the spell opens the door to the multiverse, which sees Spidey's nemesis from other universe, Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man 2, Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and Green Goblin from Spider-Man turning up to fight him. Before No Way Home, everyone from Tony Stark to Happy treated Peter like he needed to be taken care of. In Mysterio's case, manipulating Peter and targeting him as though he was less intelligent was the name of the game. All that said, the heart of the film lies with Holland's Peter and the relationships he's forged with Ned, MJ, and his beloved Aunt May. Spider-Man: No Way Home is ultimately a joy to watch, with spectacular action, a lot of heart, and a grounded hero story that paves the way for exciting things to come.
Absolutely.
So that was our 2-minute review. 2-minute recap. We didn't want to give too much away. There weren't a lot of spoilers in that. So if you haven't seen it,
go see it.
Yes, Josh, that was my first question to you was, would you recommend?
Would I recommend? Absolutely. I think it's the best of the new Spider-Man movies.
It's definitely one of the best Marvel movies that come out in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Of the recent ones,
yeah, absolutely. And some of the Spider-Mans we'd like to forget, but we can't thanks to this movie because one of the things they do.
It's funny you say that because this made me like the other Spider-Man movies more.
It did. Having them all there together did create this perspective that we've never had on Spider-Man before.
Yeah. Well, and a glimpse of where they've been and what they've gone through. Even though they didn't really flesh it out, there's just a small glimpse into how things have changed.
Yeah, and it was like to finally have somebody that truly understands what it's like to be Spider-Man. I mean, would only be another Spider-Man, correct?
Right.
So you and I had discussed earlier about one of the issues that I had with this movie, and why don't you walk us through that about who Peter is and what you were explaining to me earlier today?
which part? God, I feel like we've talked so much.
Well, we had discussed that, a lot of people forget the fact that Peter's only a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And we have a tendency to start to judge him as an adult or look at the.
You and I had the same gut feeling of like, I wouldn't do that. This is ridiculous. But then it's like, oh yeah, he's a 16-year-old kid.
Right.
Like,
would you do it when you're 16? And how much stupid stuff did we do when we were 16?
How much would you be willing to send people back to death as a teenager, knowing that, hey, maybe I could fix it?
Absolutely. I mean,
and another part is like in the recap you mentioned that he goes immediately to Doctor Strange. How much of a kid thing is that to do as well? Like, I'm going to go the most direct route to get exactly what I want. And it blows up in his face.
Exactly. And, again, from our earlier discussions, I have a bit of an issue. Doctor Strange gets off the hook 100% in this movie. He's off the hook 100%. But he's an adult. And just the fact that he allowed or even thought this was a good idea.
Right.
So I think he deserves his fair share of the blame. It wasn't all Spidey's fault, is what I'm saying.
Well, I think he'll be suffering the consequences come May.
Yeah. So.
Well, that being said, actually, I imagine the multiverse would be opened more after this movie, but they kind of resolve it completely. So I thought it would bleed into the next Doctor Strange movie.
Or did they? I mean, what we saw on screen was what they wanted us to think, but if we've learned nothing from Loki and Thor and all these different movies that have dealt with the multiverse, is that once you have cracked that egg, you're not putting it back together.
Right.
That's true. So I think that, like you said, that this is foreshadowing what Doctor Strange is going to be dealing with going forward. That and the stuff from Loki, all that happened.
Right. I did expect that to have more of a feature in the films as well. I mean, it does, like the background, the sky cracking and all that stuff is vaguely similar looking to the Loki stuff. So I guess that's all tied in together in the same timeline.
Yeah, I think that was the. I think that was part of the way they were trying to take it is to tie those, make them seem like similar events.
Right.
And
I noticed this movie ends right where, timeline wise, ends right where Hawkeye picks up on Disney Plus.
Okay.
It's Christmas in New York when Spider-Man ends, and it's Christmas in New York when Hawkeye starts.
Okay.
So, right, like you kind of bleed.
That was a good catch. That was a good catch. Where is it? Where is it in the timeline based on what's happening in Loki?
That I have no idea.
So that'll be interesting to as things move forward to see.
Yeah.
Because you would think that it'd be pretty obvious the things that were happening at the end of Loki. It'd be pretty obvious to the world that was happening.
Right.
Or the multiverse,
right.
The worlds, plural.
All right, so real quick, what did you think of each of the villains?
Okay, from the audience perspective, I think they did a fantastic job.
Me too.
They didn't overdo it, which can tend to happen, especially for an actor that hasn't acted in a while in a big role, and they get that opportunity to do it again, and then they go overboard.
Damn it up.
Yeah. And
they kept the bad villains limited, like Sandman and Lizard.
Yeah.
But they were
on the recap, I did fail to mention Lizard as one of the bad guys that returned.
I didn't even.
And Sandman. I don't think I named either one of those.
Well, they were such minor characters.
They really limited those two characters, I guess, because. Well,
also, and I don't think this has been confirmed, but I speculated it while we watched it, and then I've heard other people talk about it. The scenes where they transition back to being people and they're cured.
Right.
I think that's all footage pulled from their original films. And they didn't actually have the actors on set.
Really?
Yeah. Because the guy that played Sandman, he didn't look day older than when Spider-Man 3 came out, and he's definitely aged in real life.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
I didn't think of that. Well, they can do the deep fake now, you know, so
right.
you don't have to have anybody there.
Yeah, that's true.
You certainly,
And that would explain why they kept him in his sand form the whole time, and the lizard and the
yeah,
lizard.
yeah, and they didn't.
What'd
They
you
had
think
the.
of Go ahead.
No, I said they didn't have to worry about signing contracts with the actors and when they own the characters, you know.
Right.
So,
What did you think of Jamie Foxx's Electro change?
well, okay, so one of the few complaints I had was he's like two-dimensional. His character was it was just like, I want that power.
Yeah.
And you didn't really, they attempted some very minor delve into the character at the end,
Yeah.
but he was just a complete, he was there for that one purpose.
One note kind of thing.
Yeah, one note.
I didn't get a chuckle out of the "I thought you'd be black."
Oh yeah.
Which is kind of a nod toward Miles Morales.
Yeah, I noticed that
Like,
too when he said that. I was like, well, there is a black Spider-Man. It's Miles
Right.
Morales. So,
And then Doc Ock changing sides was amazing. I loved his character in the Sam Raimi movies.
so that happened, and since we were already talking about Sandman, when he first showed up on the scene, he helped Peter from Electro.
Yeah.
But how quickly the tables turned when
Right.
they were about to get sent back to their desks.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's a little bit of a plot hole potentially. They kept saying all these people, when they get sent back to their universe, they'll be killed. Well, Sandman is one of the few that wasn't killed.
Right.
So, and then the lizard as well. He was also cured. So that was a little bit of a plot hole. But at the end of Spider-Man 3, he kind of drifted off in like a, hey, let's forgive and forget. So yeah, I wouldn't say he's like Spider-Man's ally, but I get why he flipped at the same time. It's like you're gonna mess everything up. For lack of a better word.
So where do you think this movie fits in where Phase 4 is going with the MCU? Because we got
honestly,
a couple of pretty big Easter eggs or end credit scenes, whatever you want to call them. We got a couple of big ones. So
the Venom one, we've talked about this briefly off camera. I don't like that version of Eddie Brock, so I really hope they get somebody else. They did say that there would be a Venom 3 and a Spider-Man 4 before we saw Venom in the MCU. So it's gonna be
okay. I got
gonna be
you.
a while, which is good, honestly.
I saw something on when I was editing the recap, and I came across something where it was showing Spider-Man looking into the mirror of a bathroom or he's in a mirror and he's got the symbiote in him. He's got Venom in him. And it was one of the trailers that they released for Spider-Man.
What?
Yeah, and I'll put it in right here
Okay.
to show you. But it was nowhere in the movie. Like we said, the only thing we got was the Eddie Brock scene where he's drunk and then he disappears because everybody got sent back to their timeline.
Right.
So
I wonder if they'll do like it's still Eddie Brock, but he's a different person in the MCU kind of thing.
oh yeah. I see what you're saying.
Maybe a variant, or maybe that Eddie is a variant of the MCU Eddie. I don't know.
Yeah. See, they can go anywhere with it. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. But as far as like where Spider-Man No Way Home fits in the Phase 4, I honestly feel like this should be the start of Phase 4. Because it seems like they're going in that multiverse route. And this
yeah, and they're not going in chronological order either, with the way they're releasing everything. It's all over the place. So,
well, COVID kind of messed that up.
Well, I get that. It's just it makes it confusing, especially for people who became fans later on in life, like myself.
Right.
Like I'm still trying to wrap my head around a lot of the the history and the backstories, and Disney is just waylaying us with new shows and
it's a lot. It's good though. Keeps
it, absolutely. I'm not mad at them. It's just
but yeah, it seems like they're doing like that multiverse focus along with other things. Like you had WandaVision, so I guess it goes back to that and Loki. But as far as films go, I almost wish Shang-Chi and the Eternals was separate because it doesn't really fit.
They don't, do they? They don't.
Yeah.
Neither one of those movies advanced the overall trajectory of the MCU.
Right.
So it was kind of like, well, we've got these two movies, we'll throw them in there while we, catch up on everything else.
Right.
And you and I discussed this. Everything that was supposed to come out in 2022 has now been pushed back 3 months.
I know.
We're not even going to get Doctor Strange until summer of next year.
Yeah, May, I think now.
So,
speaking of, what did you think of that teaser at the end?
For Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of saw that one coming. You knew that he was going to end up having to bring Wanda back in.
Yeah.
Because of the way the WandaVision ended.
Right.
And Loki for that matter.
Evil Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I thought we were going to see evil Doctor Strange in this movie.
Right.
Because I told you I couldn't wrap my head around how Doctor Strange would let Peter make those choices unless there was something sinister going on,
Right.
But that was not the case. It's just Doctor Strange has a terrible sense of responsibility, I guess.
Well, it's like I mentioned earlier today. I'm approaching it from he assumed Peter, who's a genius. Strange knows this. He assumes Peter's done all the right things, and this is the last thing he could do. That's how I'm approaching it because it makes Strange seem like less of an idiot.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is like on one hand, everybody else, Happy and Tony, they all babied Peter. Right. But then you got Doctor Strange as the complete opposite, treating him like an adult that assume that a 16-year-old had thought something all the way through.
Right. Man, what did you think about him other than that, about his role in it?
Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
I think I even leaned over and said something to you during the movie about where in the world is Doctor Strange at and all this stuff is going on.
Yeah, he was in it very little.
Yeah, he was. It was. Yeah.
He started it and then ended it.
Yeah, that was it. His two scenes were, him getting Peter into trouble, and at the end, doing what he did.
I did like his goodbye to Peter. I thought that was very sweet, very heartfelt. Like, because he was so mad at him earlier for messing up the spell. Like, call me sir. And don't call me Stephen. No, call me sir again. And like at the end, it was a very like heartfelt. It was nice to know you.
Now, does this mean that all of the Avengers have forgotten who Peter was as well?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Everybody.
Oh man, where they can go with that is just limitless.
Well, it opens up a lot of potential plot holes depending on how they handle it. So, like, I don't know if you noticed the last shot, he had a GED book, but
I did see that. I did notice that.
He's already graduated high school. So, does he have like no high school records? Does the school not know he exists?
I guess nobody knows. I guess it just erased him from history.
I guess so. It's odd.
But
go ahead.
I was just going to make the point that one of the other issues I had with the movie was specifically, and it wasn't really an issue. It was just something that I feel like the movie makers relied a lot on nostalgia for the emotional. The emotional response. Like our audience at the movie we went to, our audience was very vocal, clapping and hollering and just having a good.
By the way, I love when
I did too. I did too. It felt like an interactive experience, you know.
Yeah.
But I think they leaned on that heavily to get this almost facade of a really great story with the emotional highs and the emotional lows, when what they were really doing is, you know, they were putting a lot of their eggs into that basket of nostalgia. Right. Like, oh look, that's the Spider-Man. When I was 10 years old, I saw that movie. And
right. Now, I will say one thing that saves it a little bit is that those characters had a lasting change. So, like, one of the big moments, Aunt May is killed by Green Goblin.
Yes.
So it wasn't like they just showed up for 20 minutes and mucked around. Like, he killed Spider-Man's aunt, which I did not see coming at all.
I didn't either.
Yeah. And then she had the whole great responsibility line, which I thought was a neat change, because like that was one of my favorite parts, actually, is after they find him up on top of his school and he's like, nobody can understand what I've gone through. And then there's two more versions of him that are like, yeah, we had the exact same thing.
yeah, exactly. Like I said, well, we can understand what you're going through because we've done it too.
Yeah. And then, of course, the other big moment is the ending. What did you think about that end? Like, what's your thoughts on nobody knows who Peter Parker is?
Well, so it was probably one of the biggest growth moments for Peter's character at the end of this movie. And specifically, I really appreciated how, you know, we were just talking about he's a kid and he's, you know, been forced into all these adult situations, but he's still a kid.
Right.
But after all this and him seeing, you know, and learning from this situation, when he went back to the diner to try and start working on MJ and Ned, he realized that they were way better off not knowing him. Yeah. And the fact that he was able to push aside his own selfish desires to have them in his life and leave them to live their best life just showed incredible growth.
I say that because the whole film, the events leading up to the plot are him being entirely selfish.
Yes.
You know, changing this, even asking for the spell is incredibly egotistical. And then he changes the spell 5 times. And then tries to cure the villains, which is selfish.
And dude, that had fire coming out of my ears because they could have avoided all of that.
Well, right, but that's his selfish desire, and he paid the consequences for it.
Right.
And then at the end, it's like, oh, hey, I need to stop being this way. Let me be selfless. So that's a huge character moment.
Which is kind of like you had made reference to the scene with Aunt May as she was dying. It was that was kind of like the underlying lesson in this was that, you know, you don't do things because you want to do them. You do things because they're right. So, final points. I guess like we do, out of a 5-point scale, what did this movie rate with you?
Out of a 5-point scale, easily a 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's up there. After getting other perspectives and feedback and like listening to other things and that perspective, it really is hit home with me.
Yeah, and as I've had time to kind of, you know, simmer with it and think about the movie more, and specifically the fact that I kept treating Peter like he was an adult and thinking he
nailed it.
And they really,
Give it a 1 if you want to. Don't.
No. I'm going to say 3.5 because because of the fact that I think that they were using a lot of movie making tricks for emotional responses, and
a lot of empty space for applause too.
Yes, and rightly so, but they knew what they were making. You know, they knew what they know their audience. So
Yeah.
I'd say 3.5, closing on a 4. I would definitely recommend it to anybody because it was well worth almost 3 hours.
Go see it in the theater.
Yeah,
It's made for the theater.
And stay for the end credits. There's 2 of them, and there's one all the way at the end. So
Yes.
you'll be having the other Marvel fans calling you a rookie. You get up after the credits roll.
Our theater had about half of them being rookies.
Yeah. So, well, Josh, thanks for coming by and doing this Spider-Man with me.
Absolutely.
I believe our plan is to moving forward. We're gonna cover Boba Fett, correct?
Yeah.
So look forward to that on this channel, and we will see you guys on the next video.
See ya.
Take it easy.